The young man tenderly asks Rosinia to come over, reminding her of her promise to help. The girl recalls with trepidation the moment when an incredibly handsome man took her hand, completely capturing her thoughts. The heroine is overcome with doubts because she realizes that she absolutely cannot fall in love with this man. Finding herself in his arms on the bed, Rosinia timidly wonders if she can just hold his hand. The guy, with a slight grin, guesses her innocent desire. Understanding the true reason for her embarrassment, the girl panics and tries to distance herself because her closeness with the main character of this world could lead to disaster. A terrible prophecy about the sister of the ruler of the evil magic tower flashes in her mind, foreshadowing trouble. The heroine despairs as she thinks about how to tell her lover about her dark secret and the threat looming over them. Suddenly, the young man turns into a little child and joyfully admits that he is not the only one who is in love. Returning to his adult form, the young man directly asks her if she still hasn't guessed about his feelings. With tears in her eyes, the girl realizes her mistake, because until the very end, she believed that she was just a passing amusement for him. The young man seriously declares that he is not one of those who talk about sympathy for the sake of one night, destroying her worst fears. Rosinia asks incredulously if this means that their relationship is more than just some kind of affair for him. Her words hurt the hero, and he repeats the question with cold indignation, hurt by her doubt of his feelings. The guy decisively closes the distance, warning that once everything is started, there is no turning back. He gently pulls the girl towards him, enveloping her in an embrace that promises both protection and captivity. A man, beautiful as a deity, tremblingly pronounces Rosie's name, burying his face in her hair. The young man imperiously declares that from now on, only she will hug him, establishing her own rules for their intimacy. His hot whisper continues with a promise that she will kiss only him. The heroine tries to object, but he stops her attempts, allowing him to touch him as much as he wants and drawing her into the abyss of passion. Giving in to his pressure, the girl responds to the kiss, completely dissolving in the moment and forgetting about everything. Suddenly, a terrible revelation hits her as she remembers that she is just a character from a novel. Lines from the book, describing him as the one and only protagonist of this world, come to mind. A bright flash of a vision of the future flashes by, where he bravely fights with her brother, the Lord of Darkness. Rosinia remembers her true, insignificant role. She is a forgotten minor character who was reborn into this world. Returning to reality from the depths of memories, she realizes that the events of 20 years ago predetermined her fate. The heroine is overcome with horror by the realization that from the very beginning, she did not know the truth about her reincarnation or the bloody massacre. She sees him standing among the bodies of her family and realizes that she has been reborn as the sister of the main villain. She was destined for a terrible fate, to die at the hands of the protagonist because of her brother's crimes. A childhood memory of being scared by a snake makes her wonder why this terrible truth has come to her attention now. Little Rosinia is gripped by a chilling horror at the thought that she could die at any moment. All the blame for her predetermined death lies with her brother, who is destined to become a great villain. To survive, the little girl has to pretend to be a charming 3-year-old, evoking affection in those around her. Her brother creates a snake out of water with frightening ease, demonstrating his innate magical gift. The girl is shocked at how easily this 7-year-old child uses the most complex gravity-bending magic. This boy, only 4 years older, will one day become the youngest and most powerful master of the ominous tower. He will bring chaos and destruction to the world, but will ultimately be defeated by the story's protagonist. After her brother's fall, her turn will come, because the world will not spare the sister of the great villain. She thought she was born with a golden spoon in her mouth, but in fact the spoon was gilded and poisoned. Realizing that the original plot leads her straight to the scaffold, the heroine desperately searches for a way to survive her destiny. Remembering the plots of novels she read in her past life, she desperately searches for a way to survive. The girl watches in horror as her insanely brilliant brother easily masters the most complex books on magic. The cold gaze of scarlet eyes pierces her through and through, and the boy dispassionately inquires about the reason for her close attention. The heroine falls into a stupor, unable to imagine how to influence the future sociopath, and in despair decides to give up. On a momentary impulse, Rosinia throws the water snake he created right into his face. A chilling fear grips her, because now she is sure that her brother will want to kill her, and she mentally asks for a quick and painless death. The tense silence drags on, and the girl waits with bated breath for his reaction, not understanding what is happening. Instead of the expected anger, the boy unexpectedly offers to teach her gravity-bending magic, which leaves his sister completely stupefied. Recognizing her as his sister for the first time, he declares that she too will become a genius, and calls her to him, puzzling her even more. Having seated her on his lap with a heavy book, the young villain confidently declares that for a genius like her, learning will be easy. Rosinia is completely shocked by the complex magic book, mentally indignant that her brother does not think at all about her age. Adrian delivers his verdict with an unperturbed expression, declaring his little sister a true genius. Dimly realizing that she had passed his strange test, the girl realizes that he was happy to have found a soulmate. After this incident with a 3-year-old reading a book about magic, her brother begins to take her with him to show her the world outside the castle walls. In his arms, she sees the world in bright colors for the first time, feeling an unusual warmth and care. Noticing their rapprochement, Adrian announces to his father that he will personally take on all of his sister's magical training. Despite Rosinia's embarrassed denials, their father sees only the touching closeness of the children and becomes happier. Her father happily hands over her education to Adrian, horrifying the heroine with such a villainous education. The boy silently lifts her into his arms, leaving her no chance to escape or object. Cursing this damn villain in her thoughts, the little girl vows to endure everything and one day definitely tame him. Thus began her life as Hadrian's secret younger sister, hidden from everyone in a high tower. Years later, on a summer day of her 20th birthday, she had transformed into a beautiful young lady, ready to change her destiny. The girl decisively bursts into her brother's office, disrupting his concentrated work on documents. Rosinia Hill bluntly tells 24-year-old Adrian that she knows about his plans to go south to subdue demonic beasts. The 20-year-old heroine, with unshakable confidence, announces that she is going on this journey with him. The young man reproachfully remarks that she should have chosen a stronger door, hinting at her clumsiness despite years of studying magic. The girl counters that she's simply tired of hanging around in the tower all year round, and that she just wants to relax at the villa. After a tense pause and a reminder of last year's absence, the young man unexpectedly agrees to take her with him. The heroine's face lights up with a happy smile, and she sincerely thanks her brother for the long-awaited permission. With slight embarrassment, Adrian sets a strict condition, allowing her to be only on the territory of the villa and nowhere else. She could not even imagine what a fateful meeting awaited her in this seemingly heavenly place. Rosinia enthusiastically accepts his condition, anticipating the long-awaited journey and freedom. On the seashore, a girl, enchanted by the beauty of a shell, feels truly alive for the first time in a long time. Running carefree along the water's edge at sunset, she happily calls her companion to dinner. A stranger suddenly appears and reproachfully asks where she left her shoes again, but the girl only playfully waves him off. The man easily picks her up in his arms, promising her a barbecue and asking her to be patient while she capriciously demands food. He carries her in his arms against the backdrop of the sunset, and she thinks sadly that her real brother Adrian would have abandoned her long ago. The girl realizes that he is not so terrible, and hopefully thinks that this can be considered the beginning of her successful rehabilitation. Meanwhile, in the palace, the emperor gives an order that requires Hadrian to leave for the capital tomorrow, leaving Rosinia completely alone. He carries her through the gates of the villa, and she, intoxicated with happiness, anticipates her first real freedom in all these years. Saying goodbye to her brother, Rosinia asks him with a smile to be careful and to come back soon. Adrian just smirks, because her naive concern seems funny to him, and he thinks that she is the one who needs caution. She has no idea that her brother is the one and only ruler of the magic tower, who knows no fear. The whole world bows before his power, and his warning gesture only emphasizes its fragility. The girl sweetly assures him that she will be safe, secretly cursing his suffocating sister complex. He leaves on a month-long trip, casting a final warning glance at her, full of hidden threats. Before the carriage has time to disappear from sight, a huge red-eyed wolf, sent to keep an eye on it, materializes in front of it. She realizes that this is Adrian's summoned beast, and now she has to somehow get along with this intrusive spy. A daring plan is brewing in Rosinia's head, If she can't get rid of the warden, she'll just have to bribe him. The heroine knows the weakness of all summoned creatures, because concentrated mana is their most coveted delicacy. Confident in her abilities, Rosinia easily creates a ball of pure mana, immediately attracting the wolf's interested attention. She playfully teases the animal, offering it a treat and watching it wag its tail impatiently in anticipation. The girl coquettishly considers whether it is worth giving away such a valuable clod of energy just like that, because her magic is expensive. Crouching in front of the wolf, the heroine offers him a deal, promising to give him a ball of mana, but only if one condition is met. In exchange for keeping silent about her movements and meetings, she promises to supply her overseer with tasty mana pellets all summer. The deal is made, and the girl, wishing him bon appetit, throws the sphere to the delighted wolf, buying herself freedom. Finding herself alone in the city for the first time in years, she invites her accomplice to try fruit kebabs. Suddenly, the wolf notices that the sky is getting dark, and Rosinia realizes with alarm that she must not catch a cold. Enjoying her freedom, she walks with delight through the market, buying juicy apples and looking at beautiful jewelry. With the first drops of rain, the heroine decides it is time to return, completing her first independent foray into the world. A girl with an umbrella freezes in the rain, struck by the unexpected sight that disturbs her solitude. Suddenly, right in front of her, a mysterious stranger with platinum hair falls unconscious on the wet cobblestones. The wolf growls menacingly, and Rosinia wonders with suspicion why this fugitive criminal fell on her family's private land. Despite the danger, her gaze is drawn to his aristocratic features, blonde hair, and tall stature. His face, even in an unconscious state, is striking in its unearthly beauty, completely at odds with the image of a criminal. The wolf's growl confirms her worst fears, as Adrian's spirit beast unmistakably senses a threat to its master. She realizes that this man is somehow connected to Adrian, and she desperately tries to understand who he really is. Looking at his features, the girl is pierced by a vague feeling that she has seen this familiar face somewhere before. Memory helpfully throws her a vivid picture of a banquet in the imperial palace that took place 4 years ago. And here he is, the main character of this world, whom she saw only once, but whose aura and appearance were forever etched in her memory. Even from afar, he shone so blindingly brightly that his divine aura could outshine everything around him. A chilling horror pierces her, because in front of her is the one who is destined to kill her and her brother, the sworn enemy of their family. The plot of a well-known fantasy novel called The Duke's Only Partner comes to mind. The main character of this story was Sierra, a beautiful commoner endowed with a rare sacred power. One day she meets the only Duke of the Empire, the cold and irresistible Ruvelin Rashian. Their story begins with a contractual relationship, following the popular plot. First a contract, then love. The Duke had such charm that even the most hackneyed romantic clichés seemed fresh and exciting when performed by him. The heartbreaking attraction was just the beginning of their journey, where he promised to do anything for her. In the heat of passion, he confessed that she was all he had, his one and only world. This man saw only the main character, and his boundless love was so sweet that butterflies fluttered in Rosinia's stomach. But behind the sweet exterior lurked an extremely jealous yandere whose obsession knew no bounds. He carefully prepared for the night of love, anticipating the moment when his beloved would completely submit to him. The passionate lover was in fact an innocent virgin who had never even hugged a girl before meeting the heroine. Despite his inexperience, he used techniques that made the heroine cry with pleasure. Remembering how she squealed with delight in her past life while reading these scenes, the girl cannot contain her emotions. She realizes that her death, when she hit her head on the frame, was caused by an overreaction to her favorite character. Despite the fact that he is her family's sworn enemy, Rosinia makes a firm decision. She cannot let this man die. She had barely managed to remove his wet shirt, but now she looked at his pants in panic, not knowing what to do next. His perfect physique amazes her to the depths of her soul, because this is exactly how the main character's body should look. Burning with embarrassment, the heroine admits to herself that he is absolutely her type, and if she saw him more often, she would definitely fall in love. The heroine is faced with the awkward task of taking off his wet pants, but her hands tremble at the mere thought of it. The fear that he might catch a cold in wet clothes makes her put aside her embarrassment and look for a way out. She gets the brilliant idea to use magic to change his clothes without touching his beautiful body. But even after that, she can't take her eyes off his perfect muscles, which are so eye-catching under his short shirt. Deciding that he needs a proper rest, she plans to buy him new clothes and move him to the bedroom on the first floor. However, after trying to give him medicine, the girl panicked and realized that he had suddenly developed a high fever. Even in delirium, his masculine charm is so strong that her legs give way and her cheeks turn red. Her hand trembles with excitement, and she awkwardly spills some medicine on his chest. Suddenly, the young man comes to his senses and grabs her wrist in a death grip, leaving her in complete shock. Before she can even process anything, he jerks her towards him, wrapping her in a hot, powerful embrace. Waking up in her arms, the young man weakly thanks the girl for saving his life. Rosinia mutters sheepishly that she couldn't leave him to die in the storm. Feeling the heat of his body transfer to her, she mentally screams at the injustice because he manages to be indecently handsome even during his illness. The guy insistently asks her to name his benefactress, looking straight into her eyes and leaving no room for retreat. The heroine is paralyzed by the realization: can she, Rosinia Hill, the sister of his future enemy, reveal her identity to him? A daring hope is born in her head. If he finds out that it was she, from the Hill family, who saved him, perhaps the hatred towards them will weaken. A brilliant plan dawns on her. If she plays this card correctly, she can change her destiny and avoid her predetermined death. Having made her decision, the girl looks at him with a gentle smile and, overcoming her fear, introduces herself with her real name. He repeats her name with surprise and recognition, confirming that she is the one he was thinking of. When she asks how he knows her, the young man answers with a mysterious smile that it would be simply impossible not to know her. He says with a gentle smile that she is the only younger sister of Adrian Hill, the princess of the Magic Tower. The girl's heart beats wildly from his closeness and beauty, and she thinks that she is about to die from an excess of feelings. Rosinia is embarrassed because this is the first time a man has met her and called her by her first name instead of lady. His manner of speaking creates a strange feeling, as if he were an old acquaintance of hers who always addressed her that way. Gathering her courage, she confirms his identity, barely pronouncing the Duke's name, and is embarrassed by their closeness. The girl tries to justify her knowledge by saying that he is simply a very famous person in the Empire. But all her thoughts become confused when she looks at his face again and is amazed by his divine beauty. She can't believe that it's simply impossible to forget a person she saw only once. His charming smile completely unsettles her, and Rosinia, in a panic, decides that she urgently needs to get out of his arms. However, when the heroine tries to pull away, he only presses her tighter to himself, not giving her a single chance to escape. The stranger scorches her ears with a whisper of an abbreviated name and makes Rosinia freeze from an unprecedented closeness. The girl's heart skips a beat from acute misunderstanding because this cold man sees her only for the second time in his life. The hero powerfully draws her to himself, breaking down all barriers and forcing the heroine to vainly appeal to his title. Rosinia attributes his uncharacteristic tenderness to a clouding of his mind due to the unbearable suffering that is currently tormenting him. Finding herself trapped in his embrace on the bed, the girl panics and realizes that the handsome young man's forehead is literally burning. A wounded man pours out his pain in a confession about a slow death from a terrible agony burning him from within. The heroine makes a bold assumption about a magical illness and finds in Ruvelin's eyes a bitter confirmation of her rightness. The memory of the novel she read reveals to her the true price of its greatness, which only a chosen couple can alleviate. In the original story, this saving role belonged to the bright Sierra, called upon to tame the darkness in the heart of the aristocrat. Rosinia freezes in complete shock as the plot has finally broken down, and the Duke seeks solace in the bedroom of his sworn enemy. Relying on vague memories from the original story, Rosinia desperately tries to figure out what to do now. The only way to suppress the magical power raging within him was physical contact, from light hugs to passionate kisses. The heroine is pierced by horror from the realization of why she ended up here instead of Sierra, because now she has to become his medicine. Distraught with pain, Ruvelin asks Rosie with a pleading voice not to leave, begging her to stay with him. His touch is burning, and madness splashes in his gaze, and the girl understands that she has fallen into a deadly trap. She realizes with horror that the more he loses his mind, the more dangerous it is for her to be alone with him. He holds her tighter to him, and his broken whisper of a single request makes her heart freeze with fear. His hot breath touches her lips as he asks her directly to kiss him, offering the most terrifying way out of the situation. The terrible truth from the novel flashes in his memory. If she leaves him now, the raging magical stream will simply kill him. Watching this beautiful man die in her arms, Rosinia realizes she simply cannot allow this to happen. Rosinia, in a panic, rejects the very idea of intimacy, because suppressing madness is the main character's task, not hers. She desperately tries to resist, because her common sense screams that getting involved with the main character is the worst possible idea. His hot whisper asking for a kiss, and his desperate confession that he will die without her, destroys all her defenses. The girl tries to reach out to him by asking about his well-being, but his closeness threatens to plunge her into trouble. He only repeats that he feels death approaching, and clings to her even tighter, seeking salvation in her warmth. His plea for help and desperate admission that he needs her leaves her with a terrible choice. A scream runs through her head. He can't die here, because the romance of the century with a real heroine awaits him. Casting aside all doubts and fears, she makes a fateful decision and, stuttering, invites him to simply kiss. Trying to maintain at least a modicum of control, she clarifies that they will start with a simple kiss, and he immediately agrees. However, his fiery gaze makes her doubt, because she gets the feeling that they are talking about completely different things. Closing her eyes, Rosinia gives him a gentle kiss, hoping that this will be enough to save him. A simple kiss quickly turns passionate, and the girl realizes that she is faced with a much bigger problem than she expected. He showers her with kisses, and she wonders in confusion if he is truly suffering from madness or if he is already okay. This kiss, meant to suppress magic, lasts too long, and she feels his raging power pouring into her. The magic has long since died down, but he still doesn't stop, and the girl's head is spinning from his insatiability. She weakly tries to push him away, but he only softly says her name and continues caressing her, completely ignoring her protest. In despair, she mentally calls him a stupid duke, realizing that his innocence is in grave danger next to her. Her inner scream breaks the silence. Where is his beautiful heroine, and why is he doing this to her, the sister of his enemy? Suddenly, he sits up, his face contorted in pain again, even though the magic seemed to be under control. He looks at her with a hazy gaze, and despite her pleas to stop, his desire only seems to grow stronger. His hot whisper demanding that she give him more leaves her in shock and awe at the same time. She understands that he is one of those men who drive people crazy in a variety of sophisticated ways. Despite the temptation, Rosinia firmly decides to adhere to her principle, not to touch another man. The girl tries to explain that such a relationship is completely wrong and will not lead to anything good. Noticing her confusion, he asks her with concern if he has pushed her too hard. Softening, the Duke gently strokes her head and agrees that a simple kiss is enough for today. His beauty makes her dizzy again, and she panics and decides that she needs to run away before she loses control. The girl quickly slips off the bed, leaving him alone and confused by her sudden escape. Trying to maintain an innocent face after such a passionate kiss, she quickly wishes him good night. Unable to resist his charm any longer, the heroine uses magic to force him to sleep and escape. With a slight smile, she bids him good night, hoping that the storm in her heart will subside with his sleep. Meanwhile, in the military camp, the knights eagerly await the return of their leader, whose absence has dragged on. Captain Verkey coldly cuts off their impatience, reminding them that the Duke promised to return in a month. This stern knight captain seems to be the only one who remains calm in a tense situation. However, the young fair-haired knight notes with envy that his lordship behaves much more friendly with the other boys. Knight Verkey hopes that this time the Duke will return with a truce from the boys from the tower, dreaming of peace. The captain smirks and puts an end to his dreams, calling it an official reason and sending him off to train. Returning to her room, Rosinia remembers the gifts she bought for Ruveline. Looking at the night sky, she anxiously wonders if he has fallen asleep and if today's incident will happen again. She firmly decides that today's accidental kiss was the first and last, and there will definitely be no next time. Enraged by the overwhelming emotions, Rosinia vows not to repeat the mistakes of her past life. To calm her raging emotions, the girl decides that a hot bath is the only way to regain her composure. After filling the bath, she heads to the kitchen, following her little ritual to restore her peace of mind. Her fragile calm is instantly shattered when Ruvelin appears from the shadows. The girl is overcome with panic because she does not understand how he could wake up after her powerful sleeping spell. Her brain shuts down in embarrassment when she notices that his robe is open, revealing his perfect torso. As the heroine recoils in horror, the man deftly catches her, enveloping her in an unexpected and strong embrace. With a disarming smile, he explains that he couldn't sleep and decided to take a shower, apologizing for using her bathroom. She asks anxiously if he washed in cold water, and his answer that he needed to cool down speaks volumes. Utterly embarrassed, the heroine begs him to get dressed, horrified by the thought that she herself was about to undress in this very room. Smiling seductively, the Duke nods in understanding and gracefully withdraws, leaving her alone with her thoughts. His unexpected offer of help when she was about to take a bath makes her blood run cold with embarrassment. A shocking realization hits Rosinia. Did he really just offer to help her wash up? She is confused and wonders if this guy is really a noble hero, or if he is some kind of beast in disguise. Without giving her time to come to her senses, this damn Duke continues to follow her relentlessly wherever she goes. Fate, the villain, mocks her, because the Hill and Rashian families have been sworn enemies for many generations. And now she, the daughter of the Hill family, ironically accidentally picked up and saved the head of an enemy clan. Moreover, she accidentally calmed his madness, and now the Duke seems to have become obsessed with his savior. In despair, the girl clutches her head, realizing that she will have to somehow hide him from her family and the whole world. He thanks her for her help, and she responds politely, realizing that their destinies are now much more closely linked. The young man hugs her tenderly, and his gentle touches make her heart flutter with mixed feelings. An innocent question about her well-being sets off a storm in her soul, because she understands that she is completely unwell, and it is only his fault. Responding to the kiss, Rosinia completely loses control, realizing that all the blame for her condition lies with this man. She desperately wants him to let her go, but his arms only tighten, holding her captive in his scent. The girl feels helpless because this man continues to hold her tightly, not intending to let go for a second. She is tormented not only by the fear of the feud between their families, but also by an unbearable feeling of shame in front of the main character. He throws her off guard with a quiet reminder that it was she who took the initiative in kissing him. The heroine understands that she has fallen into the trap of his embrace, from which she can no longer escape. Burning with embarrassment, Rosie mumbles an apology, admitting that she was too impulsive and gave in to the moment. Gathering the last remnants of her will, she firmly promises him that something like this will never happen again. Smiling seductively, Ruvelin notes that she is indeed impulsive around him, and he likes it. He asserts that it's time for them to go to bed. Ignoring her attempts to keep her distance, his offer to take her to the bedroom makes the girl refuse in panic, but her embarrassment reveals her true feelings. Before she can escape, he gently brings a lock of her hair to his lips, inhaling her scent and completely destroying her will. Waking up the next morning, Rosinia is horrified to realize that she has overslept, and now who knows what this man could have done. To her relief, he is still asleep, and the loyal guard wolf happily wags his tail, confirming that nothing has happened. The girl looks with tenderness and anxiety at the sleeping Duke Rashian, drowning in flowers and morning light. Suddenly, a strong hand grabs her by the waist, and she screams in surprise, not even having time to understand what is happening. The next moment, she finds herself in his arms, pressed against his warm chest, and her heart stops with fear and excitement. She is shocked to realize that he is hugging her in her sleep, and a thought pierces her. What kind of strange habits does this man have? His sleepy whisper of her name makes Rosinia freeze, and her cheeks flush. Coming to his senses, Ruvelin sheepishly apologizes, explaining that he mistook her for part of his dream. The girl melts from his flushed face, realizing that she is hopelessly weak in front of beautiful faces. Gathering her strength, she sternly scolds him, declaring that being so sweet and handsome is a real crime. With a radiant smile, the heroine invites him to look at the sea together, completely ignoring the awkwardness of the moment. He looks at her with undisguised admiration, admitting that he was too busy looking at her to remember the taste of breakfast. His open flirting and sweet smile make her heart beat faster, and she desperately wants to pinch him. Rosinia tries to understand why he continues to smile so charmingly and comes to the conclusion that perhaps he just loves it. On the seashore, she notices his intense gaze and coquettishly asks what he is looking at so intently. He remains mysteriously silent, but his eyes speak volumes, and she notices that not only he, but also his men, continue to watch her intently. Rosinia notices that his men are keeping an eye on her and is surprised to realize that she has become the object of their close attention. She thinks with relief that at least Adrian is not here, because his jealousy would know no bounds. A chill runs through her. The thought that if her brother were here, he would gouge out the eyes of anyone who dared to look at her. Throwing aside her dark thoughts, the girl decides to enjoy the moment and the handsome face of the main character next to her. With a sly smile, he asks her if she likes his face, catching her off guard with his directness. Embarrassed, she laughs and admits that it's impossible not to like his face, because it's perfection itself. Emboldened, Rosinia coquettishly asks what he, in turn, thinks of her, hoping for a compliment. She eagerly awaits his answer, because she is very interested in what this picky, handsome man thinks about her. When he stops talking, she panics at the thought that she might not be his type, and he tries to think of a polite refusal. But he finally says that she is dazzlingly beautiful, and his sincere compliment makes her heart stop with delight. His cryptic words about how it would be better for her to leave him in the rain leave Rosinia frozen in bewilderment. With a gentle smile, he admits that he knew about her kindness, and that she would still have helped him even if she knew the truth. His unexpected offer to cook dinner leaves her in shock, because no one would believe that Duke Retian could cook. With a hint of smugness, he confirms that he wants to demonstrate his culinary skills, especially for her. She is confused, because in the original novel, there was no mention of the main character being able to cook. The girl becomes increasingly confused, not understanding what is happening at all, and how far the plot has deviated from the canon. At dinner, she delightedly remarks that his food is incredibly delicious, and he watches her reaction with pleasure. Suddenly, he kisses her tenderly on the cheek, and this unexpected gesture makes her freeze with the glass in her hand. She panics at the thought of him losing control again due to the mana surge, and she tries to stop him, but he only gently touches her face, and his calm gaze suggests that this time, the reason for his actions lies in something else. His unexpected tenderness makes her wonder if she should cross the line and give in to temptation. Gathering her strength, Rosinia asks him directly about his plans to return to his estate. His answer that he won't be back yet, and the gentle gesture touching her cheek make her heart skip a beat. He sadly admits that he has not yet become someone who is truly dear to her, and this admission plunges her into confusion. She begins to be tormented by doubts. Why does he so desperately want to win her heart, and whether he has some hidden motive? The thought that his sweet behavior could be just part of a devious plan makes her go cold with horror. Citing ill health, she thanks him for the dinner and quickly leaves, trying to escape her suspicions. Falling onto the bed, the girl prays for this night to pass peacefully, but her peace has already been disturbed. Her faithful guardwolf whines by her bed, and she creates a ball of mana to distract herself from her disturbing thoughts. Suddenly, a glowing ball appears in the room, taking the form of her brother Adrian. Her brother's voice announces that he will return in 10 days, and this news leaves Rosinia in shock. His stern warning to stay out of trouble sounds like a mockery, because she is already up to her ears in it. She is overcome with panic, because if Adrian returns and finds Ruvelin here, she is doomed. Too much has fallen on her, and she realizes that first, she needs to deal with her brother's magical message. Feigning joy, she sends him a reply full of false sweetness, assuring him that she is eagerly awaiting his return. She realizes she only has about 7 days left to resolve the issue with the Duke, and she needs to stay in shape. The girl still can't fully trust Ruvelin, wondering if he's really crazy. She decides that for now, she is forced to continue to suspect him and closely monitor his every move. Having fallen asleep in a chair from fatigue, she wakes up to the sensation of a hard surface and is surprised to realize that she is not in her own bed. Opening her eyes, she sees Ruvelin in front of her and realizes with horror that she is once again in his arms. His words that she should have let him die, but now he won't let her go, sound like a death sentence. He kisses her, and she, despite her internal resistance, responds to his kiss, completely lost in the moment. The girl sees undisguised desire in his eyes and cannot understand why he wants her so much. Plucking up her courage, she decides to ask him a question that has been tormenting her for a long time, and he readily agrees. A tense silence hangs in the room as she chooses her words so as not to offend him with her directness. She timidly asks if he has been intimate with other women, and his reaction is completely unexpected. He grabs her hand abruptly, his face contorting with anger, causing her to pull back in fear. With icy calm, he asks again who she thinks he is, and she realizes with horror that he is angry. His hurt look and the question of whether she considers him an extreme vulgarian make her feel guilty. He bitterly admits that he has never had anything with anyone, and this revelation completely changes her perception of him. His tender confession that she is the only one who exists for him makes her heart flutter with mixed feelings. He explains his uncertainty by saying that their relationship is still extremely unclear, and this makes him worry. The cryptic remark leaves her at a loss, and she cannot understand why the mighty Ruvelin feels so insecure. Gathering her courage, she asks him the main question: why was he unconscious on her family's private land? The girl is determined to get an answer, because her understanding of the whole situation depends on it. His counter-question, whether it really matters, and her insistent confirmation create a tense atmosphere. He tries to avoid answering, saying that it is not that important to him, but she feels that he is hiding something. His sudden announcement that he doesn't remember anything leaves her shocked and makes her doubt his sincerity. He sadly admits that he cannot remember what happened, but is firmly convinced that he would have died if she had not saved him. Gently touching her hair, he declares that he does not want to return to the duchy until his memories return. With hope in his voice, he says that communicating with her helps him and asks her to allow him more. His frank request to kiss her and be inside her shocks the girl with its boldness. Later, finding her sleeping in his bed, he gently touches her hair, admiring her serenity. Waking up, Rosinia babbles his title in horror, not understanding how she ended up here. Ruveline gently soothes her, urging her to continue sleeping, but his tenderness is deceptive. Her sleepy muttering of her brother's name ignites a dark flame of jealousy in his soul. The Duke looks at her with cold fury, tormented by the thought of Adrian. He realizes that Adrian is the person who is closer to Rosinia than he is, and it drives him crazy. His jealousy develops into a dark desire to erase Adrian from her memory in order to become everything to her. Bending over the sleeping girl, he pronounces his oath and demand that she be only his. His quiet whisper promises to possess her completely, from the very beginning to the very end. He wants everything: her body, her heart, her soul, every moment of her existence. His desire had begun long before the banquet, 4 years ago, on that fateful day. At the beginning of summer, when the lilacs in the Russian duchy were in full bloom, fate brought them together. On the day he turned 13, he made a desperate attempt to escape from the suffocating guardianship. But even on his birthday, he was showered with gifts, reminding him of his status and responsibilities. He thought with sadness that today, May 25th, everyone would look at him with feigned sadness. This pity irritated him, because everyone pitied him only because his parents died on the day of his birth. He was tired of this pretense and expectation of affection for parents he had never even met. He was tired of the role of a good and quiet boy, and, throwing off the mask, he thought with contempt what nonsense it all was. Deciding to escape from this hustle and bustle, even if only for a day, the young Duke wonders why he shouldn't do this from time to time. On the day of his escape, he left behind only one letter, marking the beginning of a new chapter in his life. It was the day when it all began, and the young girl with golden hair felt her first taste of true freedom. She hoped that the train, powered by magic crystals, would quickly carry her away from the past. Arriving at Ives Station in the southern part of the Russian duchy, she finds herself in enemy territory. She is alarmed to realize that this territory is under the control of the Hill family, and the mages there are no match for her. Meanwhile, the young Duke thinks with disdain of those who see him only as a precious object for testing. His unique birth with divine and magical powers made him a desirable target for those who craved power. With a bold confidence, the girl declares that she is not afraid of trash like the Hill family. The faint scent of roses catches her attention, and she decides to take a quick look around, not suspecting that it will change her life. The girl wonders with admiration what kind of magician with such a sense of beauty could have built such a wonderful villa. Looking into the garden, she sees a young lady with pink hair serenely painting surrounded by flowers. The beauty and serenity of this girl captivate her, creating an almost unreal picture. A shocking guess strikes her. Could this really be the same daughter that the head of the Hill family had so carefully hidden? She realizes with horror that in front of her is the daughter of the ruler of the magic tower, who is already studying dark magic. Coming closer, she sees that the young lady has simply dozed off over her drawing, and her fears seem ridiculous. A sudden gust of wind blows open the sleeping girl's clothes, and she instinctively covers herself, waking up. Their eyes meet, and the young lady looks at the uninvited guest in surprise. The awkwardness of the moment makes her jump, and she steps back awkwardly, unsure how to react. The girl notes with surprise that this noble lady, despite her status, seems just as ordinary and vulnerable. The lady responds to the innocent question with a disarming smile and a compliment that completely confuses the runaway girl. Stunned and confused, she runs away in panic, leaving behind a confused Rosinia, who calls out to her in bewilderment. Her short summer of freedom is cut short just before her birthday, when she is returned to the duchy as quickly as she fled. She tries to convince herself that it will be easy to forget that rose-like girl, but her image haunts her thoughts. 4 years and 3 months later, an invitation from the Empress herself, addressed to His Highness, arrives at the magnificent palace. The matured Duke accepts the invitation to the banquet with cold determination, realizing that it is his duty. As he prepares to go out, he orders that his outfit be in blue tones, and this choice seems far from random. The day of the banquet arrives, and the imperial palace sparkles with splendor, gathering under its vaults all the nobility of the empire. The center of everyone's attention is Ruvellin, whose beauty and presence attract admiring glances from all sides. But his thoughts are not occupied with small talk, but with the rumor that his sworn enemies will be here today. The spectacular appearance of Adrian and Rosinia in the light-flooded ballroom leaves all the guests speechless in amazement. A whisper runs through the hall as everyone recognizes the tower's powerful master and his mysterious, beautiful companion. In her soft blue dress adorned with roses, Rosinia looks like the very embodiment of innocence and beauty. Recognition strikes Ruvellin. This is the same young lady from his vague but cherished memories of escape. He says her name, Rosinia Hill, with bated breath, and her serene image is forever imprinted on his memory. The crown prince approaches her and makes a bold compliment, catching the girl off guard with his directness. Whirling in a dance, Rosinia shyly thanks the prince for his kind words and admiration for her beauty. Watching them from the sidelines, Ruvellin wonders why Adrian, who had so carefully hidden his sister all this time, suddenly decided to show her to the world. His thoughts take on a dark hue, and he moves towards the dancing couple with cold determination, exuding menace. The Duke's gaze, filled with icy fury, is fixed on the damn crown prince, and he considers whether to strip him of his title right now. Two sworn enemies, Ruvellin and Adrian, meet eyes, and the air between them sparkles with unspoken hatred. Ruvellin's thoughts are occupied by only one name, Adrian Hill, and he can hardly contain his rage. As he watches Rosinia flirt with the prince, he sees the ominous shadows of her brother and his allies looming behind her. He is struck by the unpleasant realization that he feels a strange resemblance to Adrian Hill, and it infuriates him. Unable to bear the sight any longer, Ruvellin resolutely approaches Rosinia, interrupting her dance with the prince. His beauty and commanding aura, enhanced by the blue colors in his attire, make everyone around him freeze. At the same time, Adrian looks at his sister with pride and tenderness, enjoying her debut in high society. Rumors reach Ruvellin that Rosinia has already reached marriageable age and is an enviable match. Everyone around is blinded by this mage from the tower and his beautiful sister, not noticing the dark aura surrounding them. He listens with disdain to the talk about how the younger sister of the head of the Hill family looks sweet and kind, knowing that they are all mistaken. With icy fury, Ruvellin orders the gossip to be silent, for no one dares insult her in his presence. His assistant watches in bewilderment as the Duke enthusiastically reads a book about desserts, not understanding why he collects such strange things. This is not the only oddity, because the Duke, who always despised sweets, suddenly decided to study a book of dessert recipes. A little later, in May, when the lilacs are blooming in Rashian's garden, his thoughts are occupied by something completely different. The image of a mysterious rose of an enigmatic color, an uninvited guest in his garden, comes to his mind. The more he thinks about this girl, the more he wants to see her, and he desperately looks for a way to meet her. His assistant is shocked by the unexpected question, not understanding what is happening to his master. Ruvelin notes with annoyance that damn Adrian Hill continues to ignore all his letters. An idea strikes him, and he interrupts his thoughts to ask who this Adrian Hill is, pretending not to know him. He realizes that there is no way to send a letter directly to Rosinia, and this outrageous limitation infuriates him. The Duke jokingly suggests that the Archmage is holding his little sister captive, and his assistant is horrified to realize that he is talking about the crazy Hill family of mages. Ruvelin desperately searches for a way to contact her, but realizes what a fool he was not to take the chance at the ball. He regretfully recalls how he became confused in the banquet hall, missing the opportunity to talk to her. With cold determination, he declares that he should not have tried to talk, but should have simply kidnapped her. Under the influence of this extraordinary obsession, he finds a super way to meet Rosinia. At the train station, people look at a lonely dog in surprise, not understanding whose pet it is and whether it is the magician's dog. But the problem is that he is not in his human form, and by taking the form of a white dog, he easily jumps over the fence. He knows that Rosinia will spend every summer here, and this is his only chance. For a long time, he tried to get rid of these obsessive feelings. But in the end, he ended up here, following the call of his heart. After searching the garden, he realizes with disappointment that she is not there, and wonders where she is and why she did not come. After searching every corner of the garden, he sadly realizes that she is not here, and his heart sinks with disappointment. He is overcome with despair at the thought that he might never meet her again. Suddenly, Rosinia appears in the garden, and her surprised question about dogs sounds like music to his ears. She strokes his head tenderly, and he, forgetting about everything, cuddles up to her hand. Unable to contain his joy, he falls on his back, exposing his belly to her caresses, and completely loses control of himself. Her gentle touches to his stomach make him freeze with unexpected pleasure. He dreams of feeling these warm and soft hands every day and is ready to remain a dog forever. She wonders in surprise how he got here, and he realizes that his disguise is almost blown. Realizing that in the form of a dog, he cannot become either her lover or her fiancé, he decides to simply be her faithful dog. He wants to turn back into a human, but he's afraid that it will scare her and she'll run away, so he decides to stay in this cute form for now. He decides that if he gradually gets closer to her in his dog form, his revelation will not upset her so much. He is tempted to kiss her on the cheek, but he immediately pushes the thought away, because that would be too much even for a dog. Suddenly, Adrian appears in the garden, and his cold gaze directed at the dog does not bode well. Rosinia greets her brother joyfully, not noticing the tension, and tells him about the cute dog she found in the garden. With naive simplicity, she asks if it was he who brought this dog, and Ruvelin inwardly shudders from her touch. Adrian looks at the dog with disdain, coldly declaring that he would never bring such a stupid creature that can't even speak. He subtly hints that his spirit beast, unlike this simple dog, does not speak, and Ruvelin realizes that he has been found out. Unable to bear the humiliation any longer, he breaks away and runs away, leaving behind a surprised Rosinia. She panics and screams at her brother not to use his magic on the dog, but her words are lost in the air. Adrian, ignoring her pleas, releases a powerful blast of magic that reaches Ruvelin and reveals his true nature. Adrian looks with disdain at Ruvelin, whose sacred power, in his opinion, does not know its place and gets into things where it shouldn't. He is irritated that this stranger dares to call his sister by the short name Rosie, which is a sign of unacceptable intimacy. Time passed, and within 4 years, perhaps due to Hadrian's increased surveillance, Rosinia seemed to have disappeared without a trace. Not seeing her even once during these long 4 years, Ruvelin Rachien gradually went mad with longing and uncertainty. He was overcome with despair at the thought that if he never saw Rosie again, there was no point in living anymore. Unable to bear the separation any longer, he sits down at the table and begins to write countless formal proposals. He sent many letters, but everything that came back was laced with poison and threats. Adrian's answer was cold and cruel. If he wanted to appear dead at the wedding, he could continue to ask for his sister's hand. This letter was the first and the last, and Ruvelin realized with bitterness that Rosinia most likely did not even know of its existence. He wonders if she has ever missed anyone as long and as intensely as he misses her. Ruvaline asks hopefully if Rosinia will stay at the villa, and his assistant confirms this information. The news that Adrian Hill is heading to the South Seas to get rid of magical beasts makes him think. He understands that this is his only chance, because Her Highness, his sister, will most likely remain in the Hill family villa. His heart skips a beat with anticipation, because he will finally see her again, grown up and even more beautiful. A sudden attack of weakness causes him to collapse, and he does not understand why his instability has manifested itself now, and not after 25 years. He loses consciousness in the pouring rain, and the last thing he sees is her silhouette with an umbrella and her faithful wolf next to her. Waking up, he sees her face and whispers with relief that she has come, his long-awaited destiny. When Rosinia wakes up the next morning, she smells a sweet scent and is surprised to find that she is not in her room. She sees Ruvaline in front of her and in a panic mumbles his title, not understanding what is happening. He tells her it's 9:45 a.m., and she asks him not to come any closer, but her confusion and fear tell her it's too late. His bold proposal to spend the whole day lounging around and getting to know each other naked makes her die of shame. To his innocent question about embarrassment, she indignantly shouts that, of course, she is ashamed, wrapping herself in a blanket. Her embarrassment only serves to excite him, and he smiles and notes that it makes the idea even more appealing. Having apologized in advance, he pulls her towards him and kisses her, despite her weak protests. A gentle kiss on the cheek makes her freeze, and she babbles that he should stop, but it's too late. Picking her up in his arms, he delightedly notes that the roses in the garden have finally bloomed, and her beauty outshines them. She inhales the scent of roses, which always lifts her spirits, and feels completely safe in his arms. Standing on the balcony, he asks her to just kiss him, and this moment seems almost surreal to her. He silently begs her to remain blissfully ignorant and think of him only as the noble and quirky Duke of Rashian. He kisses her, hiding his dark secret, because if she found out who he really is, she would simply run away. His unexpected question about lemon water catches her off guard, and she is surprised to learn that cooking is his hobby. She doubtfully thinks that no one has seen Duke Ration cooking, but then she remembers that she did. The conversation turns to her mother, who was one of the most famous knights in the Empire even before she became a magical swordswoman. Rosinia is amazed because he seems to know her mother, and this discovery makes her heart beat faster. She sadly recalls that after marrying and becoming a magical swordswoman, her mother gained quite a bad reputation. Despite her rudeness, she was always a loving mother to her and Adrian, who sometimes teased them by dressing her brother like a girl. Suddenly, she is overcome with longing for her mother, and she wonders if she is still alive and where she might be now. Ruvaline unexpectedly informs that his teacher is the brother of Madame Irunia, her mother. This revelation shocks her, because she knew that her mother was the illegitimate child of a nobleman, but she had never heard of her brother. Burning with curiosity, she asks what his teacher's name is, unaware that this answer will change everything. The name of his teacher, Eric Robitz, comes as a bolt from the blue, and Rosinia is shocked to realize that he is the younger brother of Margrave Robitz. On the Idus continent, where the Hill family is renowned as the strongest mages, the Robitz family is known as a prestigious clan of swordsmen, raising the finest knights. Unlike the Robitzes, who are loyal to the imperial family, the Hills are loyal to no one, and therefore are often not considered true nobles. However, the founder of the Hill family was a member of the royal family, meaning they are still noble by blood, which adds intrigue to their story. Rosinia is struck by the realization that the strict head of the Robitz family had an illegitimate child, her mother, and this was bound to cause extraordinary events. Noticing her confusion, Ruvaline asks her with concern if everything is okay, but she just brushes it off, assuring him that she was just thinking about her mother. He sadly notes that more than 15 years have passed since her mother disappeared, and the wound is still fresh. Rosinia admits that her father is still looking for her, but she doesn't know if he will ever find her. Trying to change the subject, she calls him with delight, distracting him from heavy thoughts and returning him to the present. Sitting in the garden, he explains that his teachers call him a sage because ultimately he is both a magician and a knight, combining the power of two great families. His remark that the Rashian family dislikes titles like mage or magic swordsman makes her wonder about the oddities of that family. She realizes with horror that she has forgotten. This man is also a member of the Rashian family, and he is none other than a hero. She begins to wonder if he hates the hills like the rest of his family, or if he's just pretending to be kind. Gathering her courage, she decides to ask him a direct question, since she is also a member of the Hill family. Looking into his eyes, she asks with bated breath if he hates her, and his answer leaves her in shock. With a tender smile, he admits that he would go crazy if he didn't love her, and this revelation makes her heart beat faster. She asks incredulously if this means he doesn't hate her, and his silence speaks volumes. She is overcome with confusion, because if he doesn't hate her, then why does she feel such relief? And what kind of nonsense is she talking about? She tries to be realistic, but the thought that she doesn't want to part with him is creeping deeper into her heart. Before she can even process her feelings, he kisses her tenderly, and that unexpected kiss in a rose garden becomes the beginning of something new. Her head is spinning with the realization that she is sliding into some kind of villainous plot that wasn't even in the original, full of jealousy and intrigue. Ruveline sheepishly admits that he is in a slightly difficult position after their kiss, and his words sound like a veiled confession. With a disarming smile, he says that the real problem is that she is too charming and it drives him crazy. Meanwhile, on the raging sea, Hadrian's ship is battling the storm, and his thoughts are far away. He thinks that he can't bring Rosinia to such a dangerous place as the sea monster's lair, but the villa isn't that safe with Ruveline Rashian nearby. Adrian remembers with contempt his enemy, this psycho who forgot who he was and dared to approach his sister. The Rashians and the Hills cannot coexist. This is an unspoken law, as old as the world, and their enmity is predetermined. He understands that he has a maximum of 3 days left, and maybe only 2, to solve the problem with the monster. With cold determination, he decides to quickly deal with the sea monster and return to the villa, because he cannot allow some idiots to lay a finger on Rosia. He is ready to sacrifice his life for her, but if others are not ready to risk even a little finger, then they are not worth it. Waking up at dawn, Rosinia is surprised to realize that she doesn't even remember how she fell asleep. She's relieved to wake up before him, but memories of last night make her blush. His mocking words about her stamina being 0, even though he was holding back, make her blush. Collecting her thoughts, she decides that perhaps it would be worthwhile to go with Ruveline to the coastal cliff today. But her plans are ruined when she remembers Adrian's imminent return and becomes overwhelmed with anxiety. She decides to just take a walk in the garden and make breakfast to take her mind off her worries. Suddenly, a mysterious stranger appears from behind the rose bushes, and his appearance does not bode well. The fair-haired knight notes with a smile that she is indeed alone and wonders if it is really that easy. With a cheeky grin, he asks if she is the very weak spot of the tower's mad owner. He mockingly says that everyone is only talking about how the tower's owner is babysitting his little sister, and his words sound like a direct threat. With cold confidence, Rosinia declares that her brother is watching her, but she is not his weakness, and she can teach him a lesson. She reminds the insolent man that he has invaded Hill's land, and she has every right to use force in self-defense. Her attempt to use magic fails when he easily intercepts her hand, blocking the spell. With a smug smile, he informs her that magic has no effect on him, and she realizes with horror that she has fallen into a trap. He explains that he has a special body that is immune to magic, and this revelation leaves her in shock. She realizes with horror that she is faced with a person whose body is immune to magic, and she is completely defenseless. Events from 3 years ago, when Adrian became the new owner of the tower, come to light in her memory. They received news that the magic lords were experimenting on humans and began an investigation. Among the subjects, locked in cages like animals, she saw despair and fear. But among them, there was one who was immune to magic, and now she realized that this person was standing right in front of her. She remembers that this boy was supposed to die, and this memory makes her shudder. She is tormented by doubts. Is it really the same child in front of her? Or is it someone else, an imposter? He offers her with a cruel smile to let him grab her and drag her into the yard to watch her cry for her precious brother. Using a magical device, he immobilizes her, and she falls to her knees, powerless before his technology. She is surprised to realize that he, who hates magicians so much, uses magical devices without a twinge of conscience. A terrible suspicion pierces her. If he doesn't take her prisoner, then someone else will, and that someone is Ruveline Rashian. Returning to the house, she runs into Ruvelin, who asks worriedly where she has been. With a beaming smile, she replies that she woke up and wanted to make breakfast, hiding her fear. He senses that something has happened, but he realizes that she won't tell him even if he asks, so he decides to take care of everything himself. She insists that she will prepare breakfast herself, but he gently but persistently suggests that she take a rest, taking the initiative into his own hands. He thought bitterly that just a little more, and he would be able to win her heart. But now she was slipping away from him. A terrible realization pierces him. If he does not win her heart, he will die, because she is his only one. The thought of imagining her with someone else disgusts him, and he realizes that it would be better to die. But he immediately pushes this thought away, because he does not want to die and lose the opportunity to spend time with Rosinia. He finally has his chance, and he can't ruin it, because now is not the time for despair. He offers to help her in the kitchen, hoping that cooking breakfast together will help them bond. Over breakfast, he decides to take a risky step and test her feelings, realizing that this could ruin everything. He asks her point blank if she'll just let him die if his mana gets out of control again. Back in his room, he feels his body heat up again and knows his time is running out. She finds him in bed, weak and suffering, and realizes with horror that she knew this would happen. Waking up, he says her name in a weak voice and asks with a smile if he has died and gone to heaven. With tears in her eyes, she gently touches his face and asks why he is crying. But her own voice trembles with suppressed sobs. He asks bitterly why she is avoiding him, and his pain echoes in her heart. In desperation, he begs her for help, and she, unable to resist any longer, falls into his arms. She kisses him, realizing that she cannot let him die. And this kiss becomes their shared secret. Having realized her true feelings for him, she understands that this man may not be in his right mind, but it doesn't matter anymore. She is tormented by doubts that he may be pretending to deceive and take her away, but his suffering seems all too real. Their passion flares up with renewed vigor, and in the fog of desire, she can no longer distinguish truth from lies. Waking up in his arms, she wonders in horror what she is doing and is overcome with panic. She had never felt so confused in her life, not understanding why he was following her and why she had allowed everything to turn out this way. Seeing her tears, he asks anxiously if she is in pain, and his concern seems so sincere. He begs her to be patient and not let him go, and his despair echoes in her heart as pain. She's been thinking about exactly how she feels about him for too long, and now her feelings are bursting out. He is the first person who has ever made her feel this way, and it scares and attracts her at the same time, because he was the one who kissed her first, and that feeling was special for her, making her want more. She realizes that she should have contacted the duchy, but she didn't, because parting with it would have been unbearable. She is tormented by the thought that if she is the only one whose heart is fluttering and who is suffering, then what should she do next? Seeing her tears, he repentantly asks for forgiveness, admitting that he is the only one to blame for everything. He hugs her tenderly, begging her not to cry, and in his arms she finds unexpected comfort. His touch calms her, and she, burying her face in his shoulder, allows herself to be weak for the first time in a long time. Faced with a threat, the heroine realizes that she has only two options: become a hostage or stab him in the back. With cold determination, she decides to play along with him in order to lure him into a trap herself if he pursues his own goals. She throws the accusation in his face that he fell in their garden on purpose to get close to her and take revenge on her brother. The girl is torn apart by shame and anger at herself because she feels that she was simply used, and she so stupidly fell in love at the first meeting. However, his sincere reaction to her words makes her heart skip a beat, because she understands that he was serious all this time. She bitterly admits to herself that despite all suspicions and logic, she simply could not help but fall in love with him. A terrible realization hits her. He was sane all this time, and his memory loss was just an elaborate lie. Ruvelin swears passionately that he would never dare to use her, because even the thought of it is unbearable for him. Rosinia recalls that his strange behavior, as if he were in love, made her believe in a cunning plan. And that explains it all, because there was never any reason why anyone from the family that ruined his life could fall in love with her without an ulterior motive. Ruvelin desperately denies her accusations, insisting that it was not a plan, and she begs him to be honest. She demands answers as to why their garden, and why he was so kind to her, the sister of his enemy. Unable to bear the lies any longer, Rosinia casts a spell on him that reveals any lie. She thinks bitterly that she could have used this magic much earlier, but she didn't want to ruin her rose-colored glasses. Before he starts talking, he asks her with a pleading voice to promise one thing. He begs her to promise that she will not hate him after she hears the whole truth. The thought that he has a secret so terrible that she might hate him pierces her, but she decides to listen first. He begins his story by saying that he was 13 when he first saw her, and her image was forever imprinted in his memory. He confesses with trepidation that he would sneak into her garden and watch her while she slept, and run away as soon as she woke up. The lie detection magic doesn't react, and she realizes with horror that everything he says is true, and his obsession goes much deeper than she thought. Rosinia tries to remember how old she was when he was 13, but her memory fails her. He tenderly admits that it was the first time he felt something like this, and even then he fell in love with her. She is shocked to realize that he liked her for more than 8 years, and it seems simply unbelievable to her. He says that at a banquet in the palace, when he saw her, he realized something. He passionately desires her. Despite her doubts, he says with confidence that he is crazy about her, and his words sound like a vow. He admits that ever since he realized his feelings, he has truly missed her, and something in his voice makes her believe it. His admission that he came to this villa thinking it was his last chance leaves her in shock. She realizes with horror that if she hadn't found him then, he could have simply died of despair and melancholy. When she asks if he is sane, he answers doubtfully, and then asks what her magic told her. She realizes with horror that he has seen her magic, and his words about the undeniable truth sound like a death sentence. He bitterly admits that he could not forget her for more than 8 years, and risked his life to meet her again. Desperately, he asks if he looks like a psychopath obsessed with her, and his vulnerability touches her deeply. He confirms that the truth that interested her so much lies in his 8-year one-sided sympathy. Rosinia thinks bitterly that she always saw him only as the main character with a scythe, who would one day kill her. Unable to deny the obvious any longer, she admits to herself that she has fallen in love with him, and that this is the pure truth. She's in a panic because the more she learns about this guy, the more he seems like a crazy stalker to her, and now she's in big trouble. She hopefully asks if he has come simply to meet her and not to use her, and he passionately confesses his love to her. Trying to stop his impulse, she puts out her leg, but his determination is unwavering. She anxiously tells him about her encounter in the garden with a blonde man who is immune to magic. She conveys to him the threat of the stranger, who called her Adrian's weakness and promised to capture her. Ruvelin, with cold confidence, reports that the boy is Alex, his subordinate, whom he did not call here. She is shocked by this confession, but he immediately assures her that Alex's words are a lie, slyly asking if her lie detection magic still works. With the help of her magic, she makes sure that he is telling the truth, and he, with a slight grin, calls her ability a very useful thing. He states with unwavering determination that his goal has remained unchanged from the very beginning. His only goal has always been to find her, and now that he has achieved his goal, his gaze is full of tenderness. The whole room is filled with his commanding aura, and she, small and fragile, looks up at him, holding her breath. Putting aside any misunderstandings, she decisively suggests discussing what to do next, since her brother Adrian will soon return. But he interrupts her gently, touching her face tenderly, and makes it clear that there is something more important than her brother. Before she can protest, he pulls her into his arms, his heated whisper promising to ask her one and only question. Her confused question is drowned out by his sudden kiss, which takes her by surprise and makes her heart stop. His tender question about the reason for her tears makes her heart stop, and she gets lost in his caring gaze. Embarrassed, she admits that she thought he was trying to use her, and this upset her greatly. Her words hurt him, and he asks with pain in his voice if she really thought that. She cries out with tears in her eyes that it could not have been otherwise, because his good attitude confused her, making her suspect the worst. He whispers tenderly that he couldn't help but be kind to her because she is the only one for him. To her shocked question if he loves her, he answers yes without hesitation, his smile full of sincerity. He adds that his feelings go beyond love, and she panics, trying to understand what kind of fairy tale nonsense this is. With cold determination, he says that he has made his decision, and even if she hates him, he is ready to accept it. Leaning towards her, he declares that it doesn't matter when her brother comes, because it won't change anything, and kisses her. The loyal guard wolf, hearing a whine from behind the door, wonders in bewilderment why she is whining like that. A sudden noise makes her jump out of bed and rush to the window, sensing something bad is happening. Her worst fears are confirmed when she sees a ship in the distance returning to port. She realizes with horror that Adrian has returned, and her secret idol is about to collapse. In a panic, she tries to wake up Ruveline, begging him to get up, because they have almost no time left. Her desperate cry that her brother has returned finally brings him to his senses, and he looks at her with concern. Trying to maintain her composure, she explains the situation to him, reminding him that they were simply holding each other for healing purposes. He offers her another option, which makes her heart skip a beat in surprise. Ruveline invites her to leave with him, promising that he can hide her from her brother and the whole world. The thought of escaping from one psycho with another seems crazy to her, but at the same time so tempting. The dog's sudden bark brings her out of her stupor, and she realizes that Adrian is almost here, and she needs to do something urgently. In a panic, Rosinia drags Ruveline to the closet, begging him to hide because her brother is already here. Her impatience amuses him, and he says her name with a tender smile, enjoying the moment. Before she can object, he kisses her, and this unexpected kiss makes her forget about everything. With a slight grin, he asks if she is ready to listen to him now, and offers to create a loophole for his escape. He asks her to just hide until he gives the signal, and his confidence calms her down a little. His question about whether she will go with him alone makes her think. But there is no time to think. She decides to go with him, realizing that she will have to think about it later, and enters the dark closet. Hidden, she looks at him through the crack with a smile, and trust can be seen in her eyes. Adrian appears at the door, and she greets him with feigned joy, hiding her excitement. He returns her greeting with a cold smile, his gaze full of suspicion sliding around the room. Rosinia decides to take a risk and play the role of a loving sister, because acting as usual would arouse suspicion. Casting aside all doubts, she decides that she has nothing to lose, and there is no harm in trying. With feigned joy, she throws herself into her brother's arms, welcoming his return. She complains that she was bored alone, and even meals alone were too dull. With a flirtatious smile, she invites him to have breakfast together and asks what he would like. Her overenthusiasm makes her shudder inwardly at the thought that she has gone too far. Adrian asks suspiciously if she ate something bad, or if she was dizzy from the heat. He notes that she never acts so sweet without a reason, and his gaze becomes even more suspicious. Having come to terms with her strange behavior, he invites her to do whatever she wants, because he has prepared something delicious for her. She wonders with relief if she should add a sedative to the food, but his cold gaze makes her freeze. As she prepares breakfast, Rosinia is relieved that everything went well, but her peace does not last long. A sudden noise makes her jump, and she wonders anxiously what it could be. A terrible guess pierces her, and she, dropping everything, runs towards the sound, shouting out Ruveline's name. Running out into the yard, she sees her brother and, confused, asks what is happening, sensing trouble. The picture that appears before her seems strange to her. Hadrian stands with a sword at the throat of Ruveline, who is kneeling. With a slight grin, Ruveline admits that he is a bastard, but immediately adds that he is Rosinia's bastard. The girl is horrified to realize that she is caught between two fires, and she is the only normal one among these two evil dogs. Adrian turns to Duke Ruchien with icy calm, asking if he understands the nonsense he is talking. Ruveline defiantly responds that Rosinia calls him by name, which causes her to panic and remember the last time she did that. His words about how tenderly she pronounces his name completely infuriate her, and she shouts in rage that he is 100 times right. Ruveline's words make Hadrian boil with rage, and he calls the creature a beast with contempt. Grabbing his cane, which turns out to be a magical artifact, he angrily asks what he did to his sister. Rosinia panics and rushes towards her brother, trying to stop him, but he only pushes her away. Magical energy erupts from his cane, creating a protective barrier between him and Ruveline. Adrian, with cold fury, demands an explanation from his sister as to why this bastard is even here. But he doesn't let her say a word, declaring that he will quickly torture this damned bastard and squeeze everything out of him. He uses his magic to bind Ruvelin, and Rosinia looks on in horror at the helpless Duke. Unable to contain herself any longer, she yells at her brother, accusing him of always being so cruel and not letting her explain anything. She says with tears in her eyes that she is almost 21 years old, and he still treats her like a child and is overprotective. In a fit of despair, she screams that this is her second life, and she is tired of his overprotection. Because she is an adult, Adrian remembers with cold fury how danger always followed his sister, and he was always there to protect her. He thinks bitterly that no matter how hard he tries to fulfill them, there are always gaps, and here they are again, in a dangerous situation. Suddenly, Alex appears in the garden, and his question about what he is doing there sounds like a challenge. Rosinia looks at the blonde man with suspicion, realizing that he, as she thought, was hiding somewhere near the villa. Alex asks Ruveline in surprise why he is sitting so calmly tied up, and there is a hint of mockery in his voice. Ruveline says Alex's name with icy calm and asks if he was the one who spoke to Rosinia recently. Alex asks with a cheeky smile if he needs approval for his feelings for the tower owner's younger sister. Ruveline cuts him off coldly, saying it is none of his business, and Rosinia is surprised to note how close they are, like brothers. She decides to use a binding spell to disable Alex, but she's in for a nasty surprise. The spell has no effect on him, and he stands in the center of the magic circle with a smug smile, unharmed and ready to fight. Rosinia panics and shouts to her brother that magic doesn't work on him, but he doesn't seem to hear her. She reminds him that among the test subjects they rescued 3 years ago, there was one who was immune to magic. Adrian is silent, and she thinks with horror that they all died then, and this man cannot be the one. Alex mockingly declares that he is alive and well, and quite boldly claims that he is dead. He asks defiantly what the great master of the tower will do now, and his words are full of venom. Rosinia thinks with irritation that this guy knows how to piss people off, and is afraid that he wants to die. Adrian, realizing that magic is useless, decides to resort to another method. With a cold smile, he states that if magic doesn't work, he'll just use brute force and draws his sword. Without wasting a second, he rushes at Alex, and their blades meet in a fierce fight. Their battle is a dance of steel and fury, where every blow could be the last. Rosinia watches the duel in horror, realizing that Adrian is an excellent swordsman, and this guy will definitely die. Suddenly, Ruvelin hugs her from behind and asks if she really isn't going to run away with him. She panics and refuses, begging him not to scare her like that, because her heart is about to jump out of her chest. The girl recalls that even when she was close to death dozens of times, Adrian's obsession with her since childhood was too strong. During the duel, Alex, unable to withstand the pressure, falls, and his sword flies to the side. Adrian says with disdain that the brat has lasted quite a long time, but that doesn't mean he will ever defeat him. A defeated Alex asks in surprise, what kind of magician is learning fencing, not believing his eyes? Rosinia panics and begs Ruveline to stop them, fearing that someone will get seriously hurt. Suddenly, reinforcements arrive and Ruvelin's knights surround Hadrian, ready for battle. She looks at them in surprise, not understanding when they arrived, but she realizes that even with 3 of them, defeating Adrian will not be easy. Rosinia, horrified to realize that this could escalate into a full-scale war, decides to take action. She decides to get Ruvelin out of here, but she is tormented by doubts about what will happen after he leaves. The thought of being locked in the tower again, all alone, makes her shudder, because she doesn't want that anymore. Gathering her courage, she asks if his offer to elope is still open, and firmly declares that she wants to elope with him. She promises that if Adrian tries to start a war, she will do everything she can to stop him. Ruvelin notes with a sly smile that she simply does not want to be separated from him for a minute. Gently touching her cheek, he says with confidence that she has fallen in love with him too. Meanwhile, Hadrian easily defeats Ruvelin's knights, leaving them prostrate on the ground. His magic envelops his body, and he looks with cold fury towards where his sister had just been. With icy calm, he utters his only command, "Give me back my sister." With despair in her voice, Rosinia asks her brother for forgiveness. Realizing that she has no choice but to stop him, she decides to take all the blame on herself to stop the war between their families, and bitterly says goodbye to her brother. Turning to him, she defiantly declares that she is fed up with the way he behaves and his tyranny. As a shock therapy, she throws accusations in his face, hoping that this will bring him to his senses. His wounded gaze and the question of who raised and cherished her make her heart clench with pain. Ruvelin, taking advantage of the moment, asks her to take care of the wounded while he talks to Adrian and leads her away. She admits to herself that she is doing this not just for the sake of it, but out of fear that if she lives by his rules, she will spend her life in captivity. The truth was, she had always felt a suffocating loneliness, and his overprotectiveness only made it worse. She remembers all the times Adrian blocked her path in the name of protection, forbidding her to communicate with the lowborn. She sadly recalls that they were all good guys and invited her to play together, but her brother deprived her of even that. She remembers moments when her brother forbade her to touch dangerous things, depriving her of any independence. He promised to play with her in the garden if she was bored, but his games were just a way of controlling her. She believed that she could do something too if she was careful enough, but he never gave her a chance. In a fit of despair, she screams that she is no longer a child and wants to go out into the world on her own 2 feet. But he doesn't listen to her, coldly declaring 10 years of house arrest, and she is overcome with hopelessness. He threatens that if she does not go willingly, he will force her, and magical chains bind her, dismissing her scream as teenage rebellion. Suddenly, Ruvelin appears, and his presence changes the balance of power. Adrian turns to Ruvelin Rashian with icy fury, asking if he wants to die for interrupting him. Ruvelin, with an unperturbed smile, replies that he is simply helping Rosie get what she wants. He defiantly tells Adrian that he is the real villain here, and this bold move puts an end to their shaky truce. Rosinia is horrified to realize that there is no way to reason with him, and she needs to get out of here before it's too late. A knight of Ruvelin runs up to her and tells her that they must get their master out, asking if she has any way. She suggests using a binding spell to unite them all, and then use the teleportation artifact. Despite Alex's objections, she insists that they don't have time and they need to hurry. The idea of asking for help from a member of the Hill family seems strange to the knight, but they have no other choice. She rushes towards Ruvelin, ignoring her brother's angry gaze, and prepares for the last, desperate step. Asking her brother for forgiveness, she activates the artifact, realizing that she can no longer tolerate being imprisoned in the tower and does not want to be separated from Ruvelin. She declares that this is her life, and she wants to live her own life, to see the world beyond the walls of the tower. She admits that he hurt her, but it is true that she hates him, and she can no longer deny her feelings. With a strong determination, she declares that she is tired of isolation, and, even though it is late, she is going to see the world, and no one will stop her. Finding herself in the luxurious Rashian estate, Rosinia is amazed by its splendor and the care of the maids, who admire her flawless skin. They have never seen such pink hair, and compare it to the flowers that his lordship planted in the garden, and she knows that it is true. The delighted maids ask her if she has seen the roses growing in the Duke's garden, and she is overcome with confusion. She is surprised that they know who she is, but are so kind to her because she expected contempt and insults. The maids say with admiration that her eyes shine like blossoming roses, and this comparison seems mysterious and beautiful to her. She notices that the garden is filled not with lilacs, but with roses, and this discrepancy with the original story makes her think. In the novel, the heroine, Sierra, loved only one particular flower, lilac, and that was a key detail. She really loved the episode where Ruvelin filled the estate with lilacs just for Sierra, and now she doesn't understand what has changed. Meanwhile, Ruvelin, having safely arrived here with the help of a teleportation artifact immediately after the murder of Adrian, is making his plans. He declares to his knights that he has brought the one he intends to marry, and that first they need to start with an engagement, and he must make a formal proposal. Rosinia is completely shocked by his words, not believing that his marriage proposal could be serious. He confirms his intentions with unflappable confidence, playfully shifting responsibility for their future onto her. She tries to argue in a panic, because they just met, and the idea of skipping dates and jumping straight to marriage seems crazy to her. His frightening smile makes her heart skip a beat, and she feels his hand tighten around hers, leaving no room for escape. With a cold obsession in his voice, he admits that she has no idea how strong his obsession with her is. She is again pierced by horror from his mad eyes, and she realizes that she has fallen completely under the influence of his will. Despite the dizzying speed of events, She cannot resist the flattery of the maids, and she herself is to blame for allowing this sweet face to persuade her. His sudden appearance behind her makes her hiccup in surprise, and she is embarrassed that he noticed that she had just been swimming. He notes fondly that she smells faintly of lilac, and this scent seems to have a special meaning for him. Ruvaline reveals that he has invited her father and Adrian to the estate this Friday, and this move in their complex game makes her wonder about his true motives. Ruvaline announces his intention to marry her and offers to unite the Rashian and Hill families, ending a century-old feud. This news hits Rosinia like a bolt from the blue, and she panics and can't believe what's happening. Despite the shock, she believes in Ruvaline's sincerity towards her, but her heart is tormented by doubts. Sierra is coming soon, and she's afraid she'll feel awkward, so she decides to find her herself and bring her here. She is overcome with fear that she might accidentally ruin everything, and then Sierra and Ruvaline will never be connected to each other, as in the original story. She remembers that the only chance for Ruvelin to become a true wielder of holy power is Sierra's gift. The thought that she might take this chance away from him just because she doesn't want to lose it pierces her, and she wonders if this can be called love. In the garden, she meets Eric Robitz, brother of the current Count Robitz on the border, and Ruvelin's teacher. She realizes that he is the half-brother of her mother, Irunia Hill, whom her mother always called a bastard. With a cheerful smile, she greets him as a teacher, but he seems embarrassed by her informal address. Eric shyly asks permission to call her simply Rosia, and she happily agrees. His genuine kindness makes her believe that he truly considers her his niece. She boldly suggests calling him uncle, and his embarrassed smile suggests that he doesn't mind. With a joyful cry, she invites him to go for a walk together, and he, although surprised, agrees. He happily offers to show her the garden, and their walk becomes the beginning of a warm family relationship. He reveals that when her mother was 12, she left the Earl's estate to join a mercenary company, and he was shocked to learn that she had become involved with Claude Hill. Suddenly, Ruvaline appears, radiant and beautiful, and his appearance interrupts their private conversation. Eric desperately pretends not to notice the romantic relationship between the teacher and the student, but his embarrassment gives him away. Ruvaline notes with a touch of jealousy that she has already agreed to call him uncle, and his question about the gardens sounds like a challenge. He kisses her hand and declares that from now on, he will see her off, and Eric bitterly realizes that he will never be able to defeat this persistent young man. Finally, Friday arrived, and Adrian and his father arrived at the Ratian estate, ready for the decisive meeting. Adrian's first question, full of cold fury, is where is Rosinia, and he brooks no delay. He is tormented by the memory of how his mother, the most powerful sorceress in the world, disappeared without a trace, leaving him alone. Little Rosinia anxiously asked him what had happened to her mother, not understanding the whole tragedy. He knew that this world was too dangerous for Rosie to survive alone, and that thought made him protect her at any cost. Ruvelin, with a confident smile, announces that he is here to openly and honestly ask for their blessing for his engagement to Rosinia. Adrian's answer is short and cold as ice, no way, and his look does not bode well. The father looks at Adrian with bewilderment, not understanding how Rosinia could fall in love with such a man, and believes that Ruvelin is simply captivated by the beauty of his daughter. With a slight smile, he notes that their daughter has already reached the age to experience such feelings, and her smile is genuine happiness. He remembers the words of his wife, who hoped that their daughter would one day be able to marry the one she loved, and he realizes that he cannot refuse her. With a warm smile, the father says that when you are with someone you truly love, you are truly happy, just like he is with Irunia. Looking at the happy couple, he gives them his blessing, realizing that this engagement will bring much benefit to both families. He believes it is time to end the long feud between the Hills and the Ratians, and Ruvelin's feelings seem genuine to him. But Adrian, with cold fury, declares that the words of Rashian, who is so closely connected to the Robitzes, cannot be trusted. He sees Rosinia only as someone he must protect, and his obsession clouds his vision. Father says, with understanding, that he understands his feelings, but Rosinia is no longer a child, and it is time to trust her and let her make her own decisions. With firm determination, he gives his consent, seeing that their feelings seem sincere and that Rosinia loves him too. Adrian's father asks him what it will take for him to agree to the engagement, and his answer shocks everyone. With icy calm, He declares that if Ruvelin Rashian takes the oath of the heart, he will agree. Rosinia screams at her brother in horror, asking if he has gone mad. Because the oath of the heart is a deadly ritual. Adrian cuts her off coldly, stating that it is up to Ruvelin Rashian to decide, not her. Rosinia screams in rage that she cannot remain on the sidelines when it comes to her engagement. She realizes that he is essentially asking Ruvelin to live as a walking time bomb, and this horrifies her. The father turns to Adrian doubtfully, saying that it is too much to demand an oath of the heart from the head of the Rashian house. But Adrian is adamant, declaring that this is precisely why it is necessary, and he has every reason to do so. He says with disdain that he never trusted the scoundrels of House Rashian, and if they want his trust, they must risk their lives to earn it. The oath of the heart is a ritual that binds life itself, and if the one you swore to dies, you die with them. Rosinia is horrified to realize that this could mean the end of the Duke's direct line, as he has no heirs. She is sure that Ruvelin has no reason to make such a reckless oath, and looks at him with concern. But he, smiling, took her hand and declared that he would do it, because he still had no desire to live without Rosinia, and if she left this world, he would follow her. His shining smile and willingness to do anything for her make her heart flutter with love and fear. She panics and tries to stop him, asking if he is in his right mind. But his resolve is unwavering. Even her father tries to reason with him, saying that Adrian probably just wanted to test him. But that's not true. Adrian says with a cold grin that he didn't test it, and his words sound like a death sentence. Rosinia, horrified, realizes that this is madness, because the oath is one-sided, and if he dies, she will live. Adrian, with icy calm, asks Ruvelin if he knows how to fulfill the oath, and suggests that they begin. Ruvelin confidently declares that he is ready and offers to begin whenever he wants, standing between the two sworn enemies. She watches in horror as her brother begins the ritual, not believing that he is actually going to do it. The next morning, Ruvelin finds her in bed, hidden under the covers, and tenderly calls her name. She thinks bitterly that whether it's Adrian or Ruvelin, they just do what they want without paying attention to her feelings. From this moment on, his heart and life belong to hers, and this vow binds them forever. Rosinia looks with horror at her brother, who cold-bloodedly forced him to take this deadly oath. Adrian explains with icy calm that this was the only way he could be sure that this scoundrel would not betray her. His words about how, if she had just stayed with him, she wouldn't have had to go through this sound like both a reproach and a threat at the same time. He says bitterly that if he were in her place, he would be more concerned about his own safety, and his words are full of hidden meaning. Ruvelin sadly warns her that even if she loves him, she should not trust him blindly, and one day she will regret it. She understands Adrian's concerns, but his obsession still frightens her to the core. No matter how she tries to interpret his anxiety, it seems intrusive and suffocating to her. Hiding under the covers, she thinks bitterly about how her brother, who is so worried about her, is forcing the man she loves to die with her. This hostage-like engagement upsets her more than it pleases her, and she wonders if he thinks life is just a toy. His embarrassed look and red cheeks make her heart flutter, and she screams with delight. She playfully offers to make amends with him, and he readily agrees to whatever she asks. In fact, she is not so angry anymore, because his sincerity disarms her. She says, slightly offended, that she's just a little irritated, and his silence speaks volumes. She reproachfully states that neither he nor Adrian listen to her and simply act in their own way. She sits on the bed, and he, sitting down next to her, looks at her tenderly, ready to listen to everything. Her head is spinning with the thought of how to explain that she is angry because she loves him too much. Embarrassed, she thinks that maybe she should write it in a letter so that she won't feel so embarrassed. He confesses with remorse that he should not have taken the oath without her consent, and that it was selfish of him. With pain in his voice, he says that he was afraid, and this simple admission reveals to her the depth of his feelings. He admits with horror that if her brother had refused to bless their engagement, he could have lost her forever. The thought of never seeing her again was unbearable to him, and he was willing to do anything to avoid it. He begs her to understand that he had to make this vow no matter what, but she cannot understand his desire to die together. He tenderly says that perhaps he loves her even more than she loves him, and this confession makes her heart melt. Suddenly, their conversation is interrupted by a servant who announces an urgent guest, and Rosinia, in a panic, hurries him. Ruvaline is surprised to learn that the guest is the daughter of Killian Oscar, his former doctor. He can hardly remember her, but he understands that, apparently, this lady possesses divine powers. She claims she can cure his madness, and this news throws him into confusion. The thought that this is just like the original story crosses his mind, and he is afraid that if Ruvaline sees Sierra, he will fall in love with her at first sight. He realizes that even if their engagement remains valid, his heart may belong to another, and this thought is unbearable. She is tormented by the thought that his heart will no longer belong to her, and this thought causes her unbearable pain. Noticing her anxiety, he tenderly asks what is bothering her, but she just brushes it off, afraid to admit her fears. She suggests simply going to her, hiding her jealousy and pain behind a mask of indifference. He firmly states that even if he never recovers, it doesn't matter, and his words are full of determination. Rosinia bitterly asks if he is ready to suffer for the rest of his life because of the madness of Mana, but he only replies that he does not care. She says with despair that he can be cured, but the main thing for him is that she is there. He kisses her tenderly on the forehead and says that even if he still suffers, she will instantly relieve him of the pain. He confidently declares that he has no need to see the doctor's daughter, but she begs him to listen to her. Sierra appears in the doorway, beautiful as a fairy born from foam, and her beauty is dazzling. Rosinia thinks bitterly that she is so beautiful that anyone would fall in love with her at first sight, and her heart is squeezed with jealousy. Rosinia is afraid to see Ruvaline's reaction to Sierra's appearance, because it could destroy everything that exists between them. But his reaction is not at all what she imagined, and this makes her think. She calls him by his title with anxiety, trying to understand what is going on in his soul. He answers her with a gentle smile, and his calmness confuses her. She mentally wants to ask how he looks at her, to test his feelings, but she doesn't dare. In a panic, she waves it off, telling him to forget it. Unable to bear the tension of the moment, Sierra Oscar's look of despair makes her heart clench with sympathy. She came here to avenge her family and defend her honor, but found only new pain. Rosinia bitterly realizes that it was because of her that everything got mixed up, and that Ruvaline chose her instead of Sierra. She's glad she won't have to fight Sierra for him, but for the heroine, it must be a real tragedy. Rosinia bitterly realizes that she stole Sierra's chance for revenge, her only way to survive in this cruel world. She's still not very happy about Sierra's presence, but when she thinks about how she lost her family and was left all alone, she feels uneasy. She feels like her past self, who adored and rooted for Sierra, is looking at her with condemnation from deep within. A strange feeling of guilt overcomes her, because her existence seems to have destroyed the life of the real heroine. When she thinks about how Sierra lost her entire family and came here alone, she just can't turn a blind eye to it. She understands that since Sierra has strong divine power, she can be of great use to the ducal house as a whole. Healing Ruvelin isn't the only possible deal, and she decides Sierra needs to be given a chance. She decides to trust Ruvelin, but the worry on her conscience forces her to act. Noticing her agitation, Ruvelin anxiously asks what is wrong with her, and she, gathering her courage, makes a decision. With a fake smile, she says she just wants to hear what Lady Oscar has to say. And her game begins. With cold politeness, Rosinia addresses Lady Oscar, saying that she has understood the essence of her situation and that she needs the Duke's help. Sierra nods sheepishly, confirming her words, and her innocent appearance causes mixed feelings in Rosinia. She bitterly thinks that because Ruvaline doesn't care, Sierra is relying on her, and this makes her feel even more guilty. With desperation in her voice, Sierra says that maybe she can help her in return, and that's why she came here. Rosinia thinks bitterly that she didn't think Sierra would need her now, and that's ironic. Tears well up in Sierra's eyes, as she says she didn't know he already had a healer. Rosinia cuts her off coldly, saying that there is no need to worry about the Duke's mana attacks. Ruvelin looks at Sierra in surprise, as if he was seeing her for the first time, and his gaze is full of cold indifference. With firm determination, he declares that he refuses her treatment and does not need her holy power. He says her story is sad, but he doesn't think he can make a deal with her, and his words sound like a final verdict. Sierra desperately tries to convince him that her ability is not limited to using holy power, and that she can completely cure his mana attacks. With hope, she begs him to believe her, and her sincerity makes Rosinia doubt. She looks at the upset Sierra with pain and mentally begs her to tell her about her most important ability. With feigned innocence, she turns to Lady Oscar, saying that the Duke may not need healing after all. She offers to tell her what exactly her power is, because if it has other uses, there are many ways to make a deal. Rosinia bitterly thinks that, frankly, she offered the deal because she doesn't want Ruvaline and Sierra to touch each other in any way, like in the original. It's selfish, but she doesn't want Ruvaline to ever sleep with Sierra just for the sake of healing. She wants every cell of his body to belong only to her. And this thought, which she considered simply an obsession, now seems to her like love. But she can't bear the thought of losing him, and her hand clenches involuntarily. She realizes with horror that he has noticed her anxiety and jealousy towards Sierra, and her mask of indifference is cracking at the seams. Sierra reveals her ultimate ability, transforming mana into holy power, making the Duke an ideal wielder of it. Finally, the moment has arrived, and Rosinia, trusting Ruvelin, decides to let fate take its course. He notes with surprise that this is indeed a rare ability, and his gaze becomes thoughtful. Sierra suggests using her power for other purposes, her voice full of determination. All she wants is to find those who killed her family and avenge them. With tears in her eyes, she adds that she needs to do this so that she herself will not be killed. Ruvelin understands that her power is very useful, but helping her puts them at risk. He asks how she plans to compensate for the damage if her enemy forces him to use his knights. She says with desperation that she must have the strength to protect herself, and her words are full of pain. Rosinia recalls that in the original, he immediately fell in love with her without weighing the pros and cons, and understands that this is the so-called power of love. Rosinia bitterly thinks that Ruvaline is so cold to Sierra when he is not in love with her, but this is only her guess. But when it came to her, he was too persistent, to the point of madness, and this difference in attitude does not give her peace. Sierra says with despair that she may not have the power now, but when she becomes strong enough, she will at least be able to protect herself. She promises with hope that she will do anything, she just asks for help, and her words are full of determination. Rosinia wonders in surprise why Ruvaline does not react to her words at all, and she is tormented by doubts. Suddenly, his mana goes out of control again, and he falls to his knees in pain, causing everyone to freeze in horror. Sierra rushes to him in a panic, asking if he's okay, and her concern seems so genuine. She tries to touch him to help, but his hand intercepts hers, and his gaze is full of pain and rage. Through clenched teeth, he orders her to take her hands away, his words sounding like a threat. Sierra steps back, and Rosinia looks at them with pain, realizing that her presence only makes his suffering worse. Sierra panics and apologizes, saying she was so scared she didn't even realize what happened, but Rosinia calms her down. She touches his forehead with alarm and realizes with horror that it is burning. And even in this state, he rejects Sierra. With cold politeness, she asks Lady Oscar to leave for a moment and orders the servants not to let anyone in. Sierra nods understandingly and leaves, leaving them alone in a tense silence. Rosinia understands that she needs to calm his mana, but she is confused that this is happening in the reception area. She asks him to raise his head, and he obediently clings to her, seeking comfort in her arms. He presses her against the wall, and their closeness becomes almost unbearable, making her heart beat faster. She mumbles his title through her breath, but he interrupts her, begging her to call him by his first name, as before. His seductive smile and gentle look make her forget about everything, and she drowns in his eyes. He tenderly admits that he wants to stay with her like this forever and does not want anyone to interfere with them. With a seductive smile, he asks if she will also say that she wants to stay with him like this forever. He begs her to call him by his name, Ruvaline, and their closeness becomes almost unbearable. Rashian's sadistic torment continued until the next day, but now everything had changed. With cold confidence, he declares that he will hire her as a court healer, but he does not need treatment. Rosinia convinces herself that since Sierra is still the main character, she should keep an eye on her, but her heart is tormented by doubts. She understands that letting Sierra hold his hand shouldn't be a problem, because living with the madness of Mena all her life is terrible. But even after taking an oath of the heart to prove his sincerity, he still arouses her suspicions. She bitterly admits to herself that she was simply jealous of the heroine, and scolds herself for greed and selfishness. She decides to meet with Sierra face to face, realizing that hiring her was the right decision, because once awakened, Sierra will become incredibly powerful. And considering that the villain's target is Ruvelin, and Killian has his eye on Sierra, it's safer to keep her closer to the Duke's house. Rosinia remembers that the awakened Sierra was supposed to destroy Killian, and decides to be ready for anything. She is tormented by a feeling of guilt, because neither Sierra nor she should suffer the way they did in the original, where a happy ending awaited them. To prevent this from happening, she decides to console Sierra and befriend her, remembering how close they became before the villain appeared. She asks the maid where Lady Oscar is now, and she replies that she is cleaning the reception room. The maid adds that Sierra intends to receive patients there, and has already begun her work as a healer. Hearing this, Rosinia realizes with renewed determination that it is time for her to act more decisively. The maid escorts her to Lady Oscar's office, and she prepares for an important conversation. Looking through the door, she apologizes for the intrusion, but her words are drowned out by the silence. Sierra, surprised by her appearance, says that the office is not yet cleaned, and she cannot see patients yet. Suddenly, she hits the doorframe, and her scream causes Rosinia to enter the room in alarm. Entering the room, Rosinia sees Sierra sitting on the floor among the shards, and her heart sinks with sympathy. There are drops of blood on the floor, and she notices with horror that Sierra's hand is cut. Suddenly, Rosinia trips herself, her scream echoing throughout the room, startling Sierra. She asks with concern how she ended up here, and her voice is full of genuine concern. Sierra sheepishly apologizes for the mess, but Rosinia just waves her off, fully focused on her wound. Sierra readily says that she will clean up the shards right now, but her voice trembles with pain and embarrassment. Rosinia screams in horror that she cannot clean up the shards with her injured hand and asks her to let her do it herself. With a slight smile, she reminds that, after all, she is a mage, and this will not be difficult for her. Using magic, she instantly removes all the shards, and Sierra looks in amazement at her clean, bandaged hand. She says with gratitude that she doesn't even know how to repay her, and Rosinia, with a kind smile, helps her tidy up. Rosinia smiles and says that there is no need to take it as a duty, because she just used a little magic to clean up. Sierra is so touched by her kindness that Rosinia is perplexed and wonders why she is so grateful. Sierra readily offers her help, wanting to somehow repay her kindness. Rosinia asks with a mischievous smile, how about becoming her friend? And her offer takes Sierra by surprise. She explains that they are the same age and suggests that they call each other by their first names, dropping the formalities. When asked if she would be her friend, Sierra happily agrees, although she adds Lady Rosia with embarrassment. Rosinia thinks with a smile that this is already progress, and that's enough for today. With genuine joy, she thanks Sierra for becoming her friend, and their friendship begins anew. She understands that it will take time to gain Sierra's trust, and hopes that the villain will stay away for now. Seeing her off, she curiously asks why she cleans the room alone, and whether the servants help her. The girl, caught off guard, awkwardly tries to hide her wound and embarrassment. The heroine notices her confusion with a shrewd smile, already guessing the reason. She is struck by how pathetic and hunted the young maid looks. A sudden insight tells her that this is not just a matter of an ordinary injury, but of the cruelty of the servants. The woman in red firmly orders that all the guilty parties be brought in immediately. There is a cold rage in her eyes and a desire to know why they left their post. The terrified servants stand before her, their faces distorted with fear in anticipation of punishment. The heroine remembers that this terrible episode was in the original story. A flashback shows the servants abusing a defenseless Sierra. Then Ruvelin punished them, and now justice must prevail again. Shrouded in an ominous aura, she demands an answer, her patience running thin. In a panic, the servants babble excuses, trying to shift the blame onto the innocent girl. Her cold gaze pierces them right through. She doesn't believe a single word they say. The girl announces the magic of lie detection, and the servants' last hope for salvation collapses. Throwing aside their pathetic excuses, she asks the main question on which their fate depends. The reason for their cruelty turns out to be ridiculously petty, born of childhood resentment. Having restored justice, she instructs her assistant to report everything, deciding to personally take care of the victim. She approaches a frightened Sierra, her sudden concern catching the girl off guard. Confused and grateful, the young maid barely finds words, not understanding the motives of her savior. The heroine's internal monologue reveals that her good deed was part of a larger plan that unexpectedly worked. Under the pretext of caring, she suggests shopping, seeing it as the ideal way to get closer to the girl. Her generosity looks like concern, but in reality, it is a calculated advance to bind Sierra to her. She knows about Sierra's pride, so she disguises her help under the guise of payment, hiding her true intentions. Embarrassed by such generosity, Sierra hesitates to accept the gift, considering it too expensive. The girl easily dispels her doubts, convincing her that for her it's a mere trifle. A sudden realization shocks her, and she has unknowingly taken the place of the original story's protagonist. She hands Sierra the money, feeling the need to compensate for what she cannot give her by birthright. A warm connection develops between them, and the heroine mentally pushes her friend towards her true destiny. Having decided to play the role of the protagonist to the end, she suddenly stops to prepare a surprise. The sudden stop arouses Sierra's curiosity, unaware of the grand plan that was brewing in her companion's head. They enter a luxury boutique where every outfit screams wealth and status. The aristocrat's radiance blinds the saleswoman, who immediately sees a gold mine in her. The predator's instinct tells the store owner that these VIP clients should not be missed under any circumstances. With a cloying smile, she approaches, ready to do anything to please potential customers. Her appraising gaze glides over the modest Sierra, mistaking her for an ordinary maid. The girl shyly hides her bandaged hand, feeling like an outsider in this world of luxury. The simple words, "She is my friend," sound like thunder, breaking the wall of uncertainty in Sierra's heart. The heroine proudly declares that she came to choose a dress for her best friend, putting the curious saleswoman in her place. Hearing this, the boutique owner instantly changes her attitude, showering her with flattery and invitations. The girl in the blue dress is full of determination, because today her main goal is to win Sierra's trust, and nothing will stop her. Transformed in a luxurious dress, Sierra shyly tries to refuse such generosity, amazed by her beauty. The enthusiastic exclamations of Rosia and the saleswoman finally convince them that this dress was made especially for her. The boutique owner sees the modest girl as an ideal model, and her entrepreneurial spirit demands that the banquet continue. They leave the boutique with their purchases, leaving behind a trail of gold dust and admiring glances. Relieved to see her friend's genuine joy, Rosia decides to strike another blow to her heart by touching on her secret passion. She pretends that her guess about Sierra's love of books is accidental, although in fact this knowledge is her main trump card. The pink-haired girl realizes that she is using an unfair advantage, looking into someone else's soul like an open book. The young maid's heart flutters from such insight and care. She has never felt so important. Rosia resolutely cuts off all objections, because the next point on her plan is a bookstore, and gifts for friends are not up for discussion. As they enter the majestic book paradise, Sierra's eyes light up with delight, and Rosia knows she's hit the mark. She cleverly sends Sierra to pick out books to clear the stage for the main event. She is perplexed by Ruvaline's strange literary taste, which seems completely absurd to her. Desperate to understand his preferences, she decides to rely on the beautiful cover, knowing that any gift will be gladly received. With a gift in hand, she sets off in search of Sierra, anticipating the outcome of her plan. And here it is, that very moment, Sierra is enchanted by a mysterious stranger who recommends a book to her. A thought strikes her when she sees the mysterious blonde man. This can't be just a coincidence. Not believing her eyes, she watches as the second main character appears exactly as she had scripted. Burning with curiosity under the guise of innocence, she approaches Sierra to find out all the details. Sierra's embarrassed blush betrays that the chance encounter in the medical department was something more. Details of their conversation flash through her head, and the image of a stranger who looked like a doctor is already firmly lodged in her heart. A fleeting suspicion makes her doubt whether she was mistaken in her guesses about the stranger. She quickly pushes away her anxiety, reassuring herself that, according to the plot, it is still too early for the villains to appear. Despite Sierra's embarrassed protests, she insists on buying the books, strengthening their friendship with her generosity. Suddenly, they find themselves in an unfamiliar alley, and the heroine's sense of direction treacherously leaves her. Her guardian knight notices his mistress's confusion, his closeness making her heart beat faster. Admitting that she is lost, she completely trusts her companion, who promises to lead them to the carriage. Relief fills her as they emerge from the maze of streets, but something still feels wrong. A chilling premonition creeps into her soul, making her hope that this is just a figment of her imagination. The unnatural silence and emptiness of the usually crowded streets makes all three feel an inexplicable sense of unease. She tries to convince herself that the area is safe, but an inner voice screams at her about danger, urging her not to let her guard down. Her hand flares with blue flame, a secret sign of the readiness for the battle she has been sensing. A faithful knight points to the main road, but this calm turns out to be only the calm before the storm. A fleeting sense of relief gives way to laughter, and they have no idea that the worst is yet to come. Suddenly, their cheerful conversation is interrupted by the clang of a sword, and the air is filled with a ringing tension. She instinctively pulls Sierra to her, her whisper the only thing that promises protection in the coming chaos. An invisible force descends upon them, trapping them in a web of hostile magic. Her first thought is protection, and a saving magic circle instantly flares up beneath her feet. The enemy's disguises crumble under the onslaught of her power, revealing their true evil faces. Three hooded figures emerge from the shadows, their sinister smiles ominous. A terrible guess pierces her. They came for Adrian's sister. A frightened Sierra looks at her protector with alarm, not yet fully realizing the scale of the impending threat. A cold anger flashes in Rosia's eyes as this perfect day is ruined beyond repair. Surrounded by enemies, she stands resolutely in front, ready to listen to their demands before unleashing her wrath upon them.